Mayday, 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 mayday.
Coast Guard Station Center, go ahead over, Captain.
Vessel in distress, this is Coast Guard Sector Long Island Sound. What is your position, over?
55, 622, 73, 35, 418. I'm on fire. The boat is on fire. I shut it down. I see another boat coming over. I'm on fire. The boat is on fire.
All this drama.
Boat is on fire. I'm on fire.
Vessel in distress, this is Coast Guard Sector Long Island Sound, over.
I'm on fire. Look off.
How many persons on board, over?
I'm all by myself. I'm on fire.
Let me introduce you guys to our guest today. And he is somebody that, you know, obviously, clearly, any Stern fan from the 80s, 90s, well into the noughts would recognize and probably has wondered about for almost as long as I can possibly imagine. So this is Mr. Dominic Barbera, who was, just as famous as he was infamous during the heyday of what you all came to know as probably the best years of Stern Radio. And we are thrilled to have you on because you are just a font of amazing stories and just a life lived large and well, and sometimes not so well. How are you doing?
Yes.
Yes.
Doing great.
So you might know Dominic just got over coronavirus. So, you know, we're getting him right at the tail end of his sickness. How'd you get that? What happened?
I don't know how I got it, but it came on. Well, first of all, I had open heart surgery 10 weeks ago.
Jeez.
And I had 2 new valves, 4 stents, a new pacemaker, and they took something out of my leg and wrapped it around my heart. And when I came out of the surgery, which was supposed to be 1 hour, it turned out to be 9 hours. The doctor said I had died on a table. And the only place I might have caught the virus, because since the heart attack, I don't go to movies, I don't go to a lot of restaurants. And my gym has a lot of people going there. And a lot of them is called the Lifetime Fitness. And I used to swim a mile a day there without stopping in the indoor pool. But what occurred, I think it started there, but when I got to where I lived in Palm Beach, I started out with a fever, went up to 101, 102. I started coughing, terrible stomach, felt pain a lot of parts of my body, and I looked very pale. So I was reading about the virus, and I had every single
earmark
characteristics that you look for.
Yeah.
To see if you have it. And I called 2 doctors, one in New York and one down here. Told them, they said, well, you have it, but we're not going to send you to the hospital. Actually, they spoke to each other also. We don't think you should go to the hospital because give yourself a week. Unless the temperature goes up above 102, and really it was going between 100 and 101.5, you're better off at home.
Yeah.
So I did that, stayed home, never go out, and the fever broke after 4 nights, and then the pain went away. And sometimes, it's strange, 2 o'clock at night or right now, I get a little breathing problems. Not a lot, but I've done a lot of reading about this virus, and it's so sad.
So today, do you still think you have like the leftover tendrils of it? Like you're still getting through it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. I believe I have the end of it. I'm definitely every day is a little better. But, you know, it's weird. After 3 days, I'm doing great. The 4th day, I get a little hesitancy in my breathing. And it always happens like now or 2 in the morning. And then it goes away after a period of time.
So, okay. So I'm, that's why we're probably not going to keep you on too long, because I know that, even though you and I have bullshitted a couple of times about various and amazing sundry stories, we definitely wanted this portion of interview with you to be, very Stern-centric, and then we'll kind of be over it. But there's so much history, and John and I were just talking before you called in about it's so overwhelming just in terms of your Howard history that we almost didn't even know where to start with you. So we decided.
Why don't we start? I don't mean to cut you off. Why don't we start in the beginning?
That's what I was just going to say. So, so I want to know how you ever hooked up with him, and why did you even meet him to begin with?
Okay. I was a fan. From Washington on.
Wow.
And Howard didn't live that far from the horse farm that I used to own in West Hills, that my second wife, Irma, lives in. I gave it to her as part of our divorce. And I had a case that was bizarre. A man named Alvin Olaf. And I don't want to go too much into it. He just died, actually. But it was a crazy case. His wife was having an affair with somebody who said he was a therapist. My investigators found out not only was he not a therapist, but he was a janitor in a mental hospital. And you can look at Alvin Olaf. And Howard would talk about it on the air, because things got more bizarre in this case almost every day. I took my son for his bar mitzvah up to go skiing with his friends, I think 20 or 30 kids. I took a bus. And when I came back, Dr. Cooper, that's what he called himself, was waiting in my office and shook my hand, threatened Al Olish, and handed me a book. And he said, you tell Dr. Olish that, and this relates to Howard, you tell Dr. Olish that if he doesn't make the deal I tell him to make, I'm going to put him in prison because I have all his records. So I looked at him in my office at One Old Country Road, and I said to him, listen, Cooper, you're no doctor. You're full of shit. And I'm going to know more about you than you know about yourself in about a week. And I found out that he was a total fraud, that he never went to University of Pennsylvania. He never read a book.
Total full of shit guy.
Never wrote a book. Yes. And Howard was hysterical about it on the air. He used to give it the Olish 15 minutes every day. So he calls me up. Gary calls me and he says, Howard wants to speak to you. And he's on the phone. He said, I want to have lunch with you, dinner. And we went to a restaurant on Willis Avenue, called Mateo's now, but I don't know what it was called then. And we sat, and I was in awe of him. But after talking to him for about 20 minutes, I realized that he was a genius and absolutely full of shit.
At the same time.
Because because he had a way of being sincere, but I didn't trust it right from the beginning of how real and sincere he was. I was one of the first ones that I used to say to my friends, Howard and I we went to Europe, we played cards, we went to Vegas, we went to California, I would go on the show, I played Robin in basketball, and him, and all of that, I was very involved. I call him at least 3 or 4 days a week, and he'd call me. And if you read book 2 of his, his second book, he talks about getting me out of court one day. And it'd be really weird, I walk into the courthouse in Mineola, and I get in front of the judge, and the judge would say, Mr. Barber, I want to see you in chambers. And I'd go in the back, he'd say, how big is his penis really? Because many of the judges were fans.
Yeah.
Sure, the cops, the judges, everybody. This was the peak of his power, and you were able to be a huge part of that. You integrated yourself into probably the best years of that show, but you always, whenever you called, especially like early on, whenever you called, you always came to whatever the discussion was with some legal insight, with some, truth bombs of knowledge pertaining to whatever the hell it is, was either Robin's News or that Howard was talking about. And you came in with the knowledge, right? And so that became a really important part of it.
I gave humor and I gave law and sensibility. Howard once told me something which I've never heard him tell anyone else. We were on a plane going somewhere. I don't remember. And I said, Howard, what made you put this show together to become the most successful radio show in the world? To realize it changed the whole industry. Down here, I have some of these radio shows. They get on and say the most ridiculous, stupid things.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to copy the old Howard.
Right.
Talk about their penises, their sex lives. But Howard had 4 parts to his success. 1, he starts off with an incredible sense of humor and mind. 2, he brought people on the show that were similar to old radio personalities. If you ever listen to Jack Benny or tapes of Jack Benny, he was dead long before you were alive. Jack Benny would say Rochester, and then he'd bring him on the show for the day. And that's what Howard did. He created all of these people that were characters.
Yes.
Whether it was Beetlejuice, whether it was, and me too. I would take some real living. And in those days, I weighed 300, and at one point 330.
Wow.
I now weigh 215. But he would call me. He would call me and say to me, I'm trying to think exactly how he said it. Oh, yeah. He said the second thing was after his sense of humor, his absolute brain, 2, his bringing personalities. And then the third thing is something that no one has ever done. And that is bring you into his mind. No radio personality or actually TV show let you go in his mind and live in his mind. When he was playing gay and with Fred, you really said to yourself, is he gay?
Well, we still think that. We still talk about that.
That's grown, Dominic. That's grown. That narrative has grown big time.
Yeah.
And that's the Homo Room stories. And the last one, and it's not going to be that he's the world's greatest interviewer,
Right.
but the fourth one was to take products, because, he has to make money.
Right.
Yeah.
He's going to be worth $1 billion someday. And what he does is he takes sodas, all sorts of things, and he fills them up and talks about them. Like that soda. What was the soda called?
Snapple.
Do you know the Snapple got sold for $800 million, and then Nabisco made a mess of it, and the owners bought it back, were giving it back for $300 million, and then they built it up again.
Do you think he did a lot of
part of that.
Little Snapple dirt, huh?
Dom?
We get that.
Dom, do you think he because we always talk about it, even when the current Howard, which we'll come back to in a few minutes, but whenever he talks about a product on air, when it's not like some stupid commercial or something like that, do you think he's getting paid for it every time he actually mentions a product on air?
No. They buy it by the minute. That's it.
But what I mean, though, is not as a commercial, though, but just as a discussion with him and Robin about drinking Dunkin' Donuts or going to Starbucks.
Nope. Let me tell you, Howard, from what I know, and I knew him pretty well, before Ralph came in the picture, I was his best friend. He said Howard was offered in the old days millions and millions and millions of dollars to do a Howard Stern notebook cover, a Howard Stern pen, anything. He never took that. He never took a penny from that.
He didn't license himself. Yeah.
He would never do that. And he made fun of Jackie when Jackie would get a hotel room for a 20% reduction. Howard thought it was disgusting.
Well, Howard always hated when you used his name.
Howard, yes.
Yeah, and I think that. And so, would you think that during this whole time that you had like a real relationship and friendship with him, or do you think that it was just more of a friendship of convenience for Howard?
Well, everything is always the convenience for Howard, but you got to remember, what did Howard give me? He built my law practice.
Yeah.
When he had 20 or 25 million listeners, can you imagine what that did to my practice? And he would, no matter what he said about me, whenever it's a fat joke, he always ended with, "Look, boy, is he a good lawyer?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but do I believe how he really felt about me? Well, you have to say that in terms of what happens when the friendship goes through rough times.
Right.
If you love somebody as a friend, and I've had no friends, maybe one when I was a kid, he never ever, when our friendship got weak or anything, he never ever, looked at me, "Where are you? Can I help you?" And that's what I am most disappointed in Howard. When I went through 4 houses, a fortune, I don't know how many, 6 cars at the same time. Excuse me. I can only remember that when I went bad, and I did, I got suspended as a lawyer for 1 year.
Right.
My practice got from a massive amount of income. I mean, I had some of the most famous cases on Long Island, whether it was Mel White's, his wife who owned Food Town, it was $100 million settlement. Carl Icahn, I had the wife, he was the richest man in New York. All the Sopranos, they got to know me through the air. And I always thought that Howard would someday call me up and say, "Dominic, can I help you?" But then again, you think about the people I went. See, I can understand his anger to Suddenly John. I can understand his anger towards Jackie, and not particularly helping them, but not some of the other people that left the show that he made like they disappeared.
Well, because
if you think about what?
Go ahead.
Name a person that he is friendly with now. He has no friends.
No.
Even Dr. Lou, who was his roommate in college, it's him and Beth. And by the way, I loved Allison and I love Beth.
Yeah.
Beth is a particularly good, sweet, kind woman who really loves Howard and takes care of him.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because there's so many people that would say that the the turning of Howard to being this person that he is today is because of his relationship with Beth. And I know you were there during the early days of the Beth relationship, and you knew Allison as well, right? So when Howard does private parts and then, gets this apartment in the city and probably starts staying there a little bit more than Allison would probably like, and here he is doing a movie which is basically a love story to his wife, as opposed to being like a bawdy, disgusting, lesbian, titty-driven movie. And then, months later, he announces that he's getting a divorce.
Well, first of all, you have to let's break down your points. Number one, the movie, when it was the premiere, and I sat, I think, 2 seats from him, that premiere, he didn't sit with his wife. They were already thinking of getting divorced. And more Howard. And I think Allison was devastated. I don't think she wanted it. And I don't believe, which a lot of people do, the pictures of Howard and Beth prior to Howard leaving. They're not real. I don't believe that Howard and Beth hooked up in any way. But you got to remember that Howard can keep a lie forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep secrets forever. So that part of his life. Do I really think Howard's changed now? Nope. I think Howard always was Howard. And now he wants acceptance, just like he wants to be good looking. I mean, I used to be a pretty good looking guy in my 40s and 50s, and I sent you a picture recently. And Howard never was handsome, and he never felt good looking. And there is a thing about him where he, how do I want to say this? He did all he can to make himself better looking.
Polished her.
I don't remember Howard's teeth when he was in the 70s. They looked like rat teeth.
They were like doll teeth. Yeah, he's had his nose done. We think he's had his chin done. He's had all his teeth done. But this is all.
I know he had his chin.
Yeah, this is all the the new and improved Howard to make himself better. And then along comes, a much younger blonde girl who actually is attracted to him in some way, shape, or form. And
I think she's attracted to him. Howard, I want to later get into this coronavirus and Howard because it's very fascinating. There's a great article in the Times. I guess I'll go a little bit into it now. There was a great article that the coronavirus, that there actually is a Saint Corona that lived thousands of years ago. I don't have to look that up, but that saint is the saint that people pray to get rid of things like that have occurred now, these viruses and stuff. But Howard stayed at my house in Shelter Island. That was one of my homes I had. And when I became a drug addict, I messed that house up.
Yeah.
And it was worth about $7-8 million then. And Howard stayed on there. And I remember when I married Leslie, my third wife. All my wives have been great. I'm the bum. But Leslie, Howard took us on a honeymoon. We flew to Saint Martin. And it was Howard and Beth and Howard, Leslie and I, the guy who owns part of Nobu.
Richie Notar. Richie Notar.
And, Richie Notar was the couple with the woman he later married. And that trip was very funny. We got on the plane, at Teterboro. And we take off and get to about 20,000 feet. Maybe, yeah. And the plane fills in smoke.
Oh, jeez.
I'm talking a lot of smoke. Like a problem breathing smoke. So our face masks drop down, and Howard is holding on to Beth like the most frightened man I've ever seen. You know, what is it? And ultimately, 5 minutes later, as we go drop about 10,000 feet to go land, we find out that the stewardess had left a plastic bag on one of the burners. So,
geez. So it was a simple, just a burner.
Yeah, you see, most of Howard's personality quirks, we'll use that word, are real. I remember when Fred at the bachelor party took a nosedive and hit the ground and bleeding.
Yeah.
Howard's in my arms, scared out of his mind that Fred's going to die. You know, he was really frightened by being part of that event, of seeing that.
Do you think part of the reason why you became not part of his world anymore was because when you were going through everything with the drugs and it just seemed like it was a huge series of unfortunate events. So that every time you were in the newspaper for some new, fresh hell, it was always associated with Dominic Barbera, who you've heard on the Howard Stern show. And do you think he started to kind of resent that a little?
Nope. Even though he wanted to make himself, he always wanted to be Johnny Carson, I remember. He didn't like Johnny Carson, but he wanted to have a show at night, which he tried on Channel 5, and it was a flop.
Horrible.
Yep.
Howard wants to be loved, and we all want to, but Howard and his relationship, I've been out with Howard's father alone at the track, so I've been out to dinner with the kids, even when the first class was born. I was in a hospital for that. They didn't have a particularly good relationship. And his mother, who I am crazy about, she was who he describes. And that voice is hers. And do I think she wanted to break away from me as a friend? No, actually, Howard had started to distance himself from me before that. And I think the issue was, I no longer need you, want you. And that's okay. I don't have a problem with Howard in any way.
But is it really okay? I mean, honestly, is it really okay? I think that you were the guy who was there every time. Okay, first off, above and beyond the legal calls, you were the guy that was there every single time that there was a friggin' bet to be made. Like, you were the guy who would be immediately on the phone saying, I'll take the action. I'll put up the money for whatever stupid shenanigans they're doing. I'll make sure everybody gets into scores. I'll make sure that the poker parties happen. What, John?
I don't think the boxing match exists without Dominic stepping up. I don't think the Gary apology tape exists without Dominic stepping up.
But you know what? The push-ups.
Well, it's all
the push-ups.
That's another great one. Exactly, Scott.
I've met Scott. He's the only guy I met in the last few years. Scott was down here on a trip after his wife had died, and we sat and spoke. And how, again, I believe it's true. How could Howard not pay all the bills? How could Howard not call up Scott and say, I got this all covered?
You know he got fired, right?
A woman's dying.
Dominic, you know he got fired, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's a lateral move or he got fired, but he's not working for his show.
No. Fired from Sirius. Looking for a job, fired. Because
really?
Yes, I advised him on a couple of lawyers that he could talk to when he was trying to negotiate his exit package prior to signing
Did they give him any exit package?
NDA. Well, prior to signing, he didn't want to really sign that NDA without getting a pack. He was with him 30 some odd years, and he thought what they were giving him was a little bit less than what he should have expected. And the story goes that they were at the Christmas party this past year, and Scott had a lady friend with him who was, new to that Stern universe. And Howard was giving a speech at the end of the Christmas party or the holiday party, and she was recording it on her phone. And I'm sure you've heard of the Marcy Turk that exists in Howard's life right now.
Or have you?
Or do you know who Marcy Turk is?
I know who she is. I've never met her, but I do believe that she's got great power over Howard.
Yes, I agree. She's a little Svengali-like. So Marcy came over to the girlfriend or his lady friend and said, stop recording. As a matter of fact, not only stop recording, but let me see what you have on there and delete it right in front of me. And Scott's like, why are you talking to her this way? Like really kind of, very aggressive. And Scott being Scott told her basically, F you. Don't talk to my lady friend this way. And they got into a little scuffle about it. Howard comes over, asks what the problem is. Marcy tells him what happened. He says, you have to remove whatever it is you have on there. And that was that. And then cut to that party was on a Friday. The following Wednesday, he was dismissed from service for Sirius and for Howard. So here's a guy who you basically know was on the balls of his friggin' feet, right? Doesn't have a pot to piss in. Probably didn't have a really great retirement thing, especially after what happened to his wife, Robin. And he wasn't happy with the severance package, I guess, that they were giving him. So I think he was taking the legal route to see if he could, negotiate a better package before he exited. But,
Well, I think that I personally think that everyone on that show were good people that, in terms of their relationship with me, whether it be Sal, or Sal's, whatever that guy's name is, Chris?
Richard.
Yeah, right. And all of them. And what's his name? Baba Booey. Gary, I was very, very close with. I represented his mother for divorce.
Oh, wow.
And she was not feeling well emotionally. And I took it in my business to really go there, talk to her, and never charge her a penny. And there's another guy. You'd think not Scott. Gary would say, Dominic, what do you need?
No.
And Robin, I don't know, but they're all under Howard's thumb. Robin is one of the finest women I've ever met.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There was she brought me into a charity because Don Buckwell told him to about where you teach young children in school good touch, bad touch. And in the middle of that, I had a I've been shot once in my life, and it was dismissed. And the papers made a big deal out of it. It was nothing. She got involved to make me feel better. And, we had some commonality in terms of my being abused as a child and her being abused by her father. And I liked her. I still like her a lot. Again, and I don't. Do I think Howard really likes her? I think he loves her.
I think he loves her. I agree. I agree. I just don't think that. Do you think? Do you listen to the show at all, or no?
No. I stopped listening when the show went to Howard wanting to become Edward R. Murrow. It's very. You know who he is.
Of course.
He was a famous interview.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at the show. Howard had a plan when he went into a new market. He would do some outrageous things, make some jokes about the city. She started drawing in there, and that would get his name in all the papers. And that would give him his first bump in the market. And then people would listen, and it would grow and grow and grow. I mean, you got to remember how many listeners he had. He was number one everywhere.
Everywhere.
And he, so that beginning was to make himself famous. Then he got the Hollywood taste with the movie, which he liked, and he did a very credible job acting. And then, after that, he all of a sudden wanted to be friendly with these people that he was making fun of his whole life. And I never really understood that. Who's the female interviewer?
Oh.
Who?
Oh, no.
In the afternoon.
The female interview in the afternoon?
Yeah, she's number one. She's gay. She came out.
Oh, Oprah.
No.
You're talking about Ellen DeGeneres?
Ellen, okay.
Yes.
Ellen.
He used to make fun of Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah.
He made up the name Ellen DeGenerate. And I think Ellen's great. What, say what?
Vaginefeld.
What's your name?
Yeah. And I think she's great. I mean, I have no problems. And with her, who am I to even complain? But then, when he wanted to become everyone's friend in Hollywood, he went out and be with her, went on her show, apologized on his show for making no comments. But everyone he later went to make friends with, how many of those people today is he friendly with?
None. Zero.
Except the medicine I take for my heart.
That's okay.
I had a little memory problems. The guy at night.
Jimmy Kimmel.
Channel 7. Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel and him have a true friendship. But Jimmy Kimmel worships Howard.
Yeah, that's
what he loves. He loves somebody who worships him. Yeah. He wants that, and Jimmy is a great conduit for Howard to all of Jimmy's real legitimate superstar friends, and he loves that, and he's always wanted that.
After I was in New York when I had my pacemaker put in about 8-9 years ago. And that's the only thing I ever had done with my heart. It was a pacemaker before this stuff. And I'm in a restaurant in the city, a fantastic Italian restaurant, uptown, east side. You go down the stairs to get in it. And I'm in there with my son, Jason, my daughter, Elise, Jason's wife, Adina, Rui, my son-in-law, who's the love of my life, and Howard and Jimmy Kimmel, coincidentally, on the other side of the dining room.
Wow. What year is this, Dominic?
In Manhattan. Jimmy Kimmel came over to my table and gave me a kiss and said, "Get better."
Wow.
And Howard?
Stand-up guy.
Dominic, what year is this? I just want to see where his head's at the time compared to
about 7 years ago.
All right, so you're on the outs with Howard. So this is 2013. The last time you called the show was December of 2012, and you could tell he had checked out. So all right, so Kimmel comes over. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It would be that period of time. Now,
right.
If I heard that Howard was ill, do you know how many letters I'd write? You know how many I'd call the hospital in those days? He never did that once. He has never asked me, "How are you doing with the open heart surgery?" And I know he knows about it.
Monique, when you would hear Dominic,
saying, "Why aren't you my friend?" I'm a man, 74 years old, trying to figure out what happened to you.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think happened to him? What's your analysis?
Well, something happened to him leaving Allison. Something happened with him. And I think he really is this person always. It's just that I'm not sure. I do know a few things. Number one, when his parents start to die, and we all die, it's going to be devastating to him. He may think all this therapy has insulated him from grief, but it won't. I was there when his daughter got bat mitzvah at the temple in Roslyn, and he got up and he sang one of these songs they sing, a prayer. He did a beautiful job, and he spoke eloquently at this speaking Hebrew. So that's one of the things that I think happened with Howard is this, but there is a different person there. He's become even more insulated. Now, I was reading an article in the New York Times a couple of days ago that said the most incredible part of this virus is it makes all of us vulnerable. You could be the richest man in the world.
Yep, absolutely. And
you could be one day away from death. And that is happening, by the way. People catch the virus on Tuesday, go to the hospital Wednesday, they die Thursday.
It's amazing.
And young people.
Well, every person I know, who has it or is suspected of having it, who's under the age of 50, let's say, there's not a single one of them that a doctor has said to them, go to the hospital. Every single one of them, it's like, do not go to the hospital, stay home, ride it out, and let me know how you feel in like 5 or 6 days.
That's partially true, but that's if you go to some of the countries that don't have the medical care we have or the medications, maybe. But I can assure you that Howard has not left his house.
No.
Whether it's Palm Beach or Southampton.
Yep.
He's not left it. He's doing his show in some lame way. I actually got someone sent me
the video. How horrible!
Yeah. Oh my God! But he is truly frightened, and he is a true germophobe. Now I'm going to repeat something that he speaks about on the air, so it's not like something he told me personally. And that is that he does not believe in oral sex. He said that. Yeah. I'm not making this up. And he doesn't believe intercourse without a condom.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Listen. Isn't that a weird thing when you're married to somebody for 20 years or
20 years? I think it's a weird thing after the second date.
Exactly. But he is becoming Howard Hughes. I say it all the time. Like, I think that, he is not leaving that home. And I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this contract, which is up at the end of this year, because he's not leaving.
Well, first of all, he's feeling vulnerable, like we all are to life. I mean, none of us think we're invincible. I used to, think about it, in this 1 year, I've had the open heart surgery, died on a table, and I got something. I had the virus, but I wouldn't have gone in the hospital anyway. And then that occurs. He is now, why would he do this? Now he has no reason to go to that studio again.
No.
Never.
And he won't.
And so I don't see him. He will eventually at some sort of deal with Sirius as probably at least up to 20 years. So we'll always have Howard on the air.
Yeah, You know, they've sanctioned so many of those shows now. John, you're crunching a lot. They're sanctioning so many of the shows nowadays. Like, they have effectively removed so much of Artie from the show. You know, you can listen to clips and you hear the original one and then you hear the new one, and they've removed him completely. And
when you say sanction, you mean that they have deleted parts of it.
Deleted the last. They've sectioned out Artie, is what they've done. You know, there was a rumor, and I'm going to ask you about it now because I'm talking about Artie, but the rumor was that you were the person to leak the details of Artie's suicide to the press. Is that true?
I never knew about it. Ralph did it. Please. Why would I want to hurt? Why would I want to hurt Ralph? I mean, Artie. I love Artie. We socialized. He stayed at my house. I bought him his tuxedo for Howard's wedding. He's a wonderful man. I love him dearly. Of course not. I would never do that.
You found him his first Dominic, you found him his first rehab, right, in 2009? Were you the conduit to his first rehab in 2009? And Howard shit on that. Yeah. Right. And then how about the aftermath? How about in 2010 when he attempted suicide? Were you on that at that time?
Was I involved with
Did you follow up? Yeah, on the suicide, say post when he left the show when he was fired. Did you follow up with his suicide? Were you involved in getting him help after that? I believe.
I've been involved a few times. As recently as when I went into, my rehab down here, I was in a sober house, and I called Artie's manager, or Artie, I don't remember which, and said, come on down, and Artie wants to die, and Artie will die.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it because I truly love him. He's a very interesting, complicated person, and
sadly,
he's actually the mirror of Howard because he cares about everyone, he gives to everyone, and he worries. Where Howard gives to no one, and I don't think Howard ever worried about anyone other than Howard and his mother and father, and maybe Beth now. Certainly not in my opinion. I don't see him and his sister very close.
No. Baltimore Library. Dominic, would you consider Howard a sociopath in your legalese definition of what one is?
We as trial lawyers in custody cases have a book called MSW 3-4 and Volume 5. And you guys should get the last volume. One of my clients wrote about a third of it, and I tried her custody case and won it. But you have to go and say, no person, look at an apple pie. Then Howard made a joke. See, it's food. Look at an apple pie.
Well, he did.
Two slices could have some sociopathic behavior, obsessive behavior. So it's not, when I say Howard is a psychotic or sociopath, no.
How much of this? Well, you know him better than we do, Dominic. What's the most loss Howard's ever experienced? Like, I'm 20 plus years younger than him, and I've experienced way more loss in my life and all sorts of. I'm sure Monique has. I know she has.
Oh, I have.
So what's significant loss? Now, Dominic, did you know his cousin Stacy, who died downtown? He had a GoFundMe page, and Howard just kind of let him rot down there. They literally posted a GoFundMe page, and I think Allison contributed to it. I think his oldest daughter Emily did, and Howard just blew it off.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Emily, all 3 children that Howard has are wonderful, but I can assure you that Allison was the real reason for their growth as people. One of the children, and I'm having a mental, she went into theater and got involved with this creep,
Emily,
who put her in a nude show.
Yep.
And everyone has said that I sent some people to talk to him. And of course I would never do that, but it did shut down in 2 days.
Like La Cosa Nostra?
Having nothing to do with you.
No. Yeah. No. I'm Italian, but I have nothing to do with the mafia.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Right?
So between Allison and Beth, like, what do you think? Like, do you think that, Allison was the more nurturing mother person, and then, what do you think between the two of them?
You're asking who's more nurturing?
Yeah.
Well,
Allison or Beth?
Yes.
Well, Beth was never nurturing. I mean, Allison raised these children.
And so did you think Beth was a little bit, and you know what, listen, I'm totally talking out of turn here, but do you think Beth, when he first met her, did you think she was a bit of like a fawning kind of gold digger type, or did you really think from the beginning that she was like the one that he was going to be with? Because I remember he was also with Robin Givens supposedly for a little while.
Yeah.
And
now listen,
Monique, can I cut into this?
I'm going to tell you, Robin Givens and I had dinner. She wanted me to represent her against Tyson in a post-judgment lawsuit.
Yeah.
Howard never had sex with Robin Givens. Howard has never had sex with that redhead that was in the football. Yeah, never. And I don't think Howard's ever had sex with anyone but Allison and Beth in the last 30 years.
I 1,000% agree with you. We always talk about how we don't think that his, alleged mad tear was ever a mad tear. He needs to be in a relationship. So, I'm sure he went right from Allison into meeting Beth at this party, I guess, that he went to, some dinner party that he was at with Cabby and Ralph. And that was it. This is the girl I'm going to be with. That's it.
Dominic,
now,
what do you...
Go ahead.
I'll give you a secret that I can't figure out. And I've been there. Ralph and Howard.
Yeah.
Nobody can.
Now, I'll tell you why. When Howard met Ralph, I got to kick the boot out the window. That's fine. I had a wife or girlfriend or whatever it was. And kids. Dedicated to my kids always. Ralph became the air Howard breathes. And nobody in Howard's life has ever taken advantage of Howard as Ralph has. And by the way, Ralph gets what he gives.
Right.
I don't care if he makes $200,000 a year. He's there when Howard needs him, and he's gone through the usual trail that people go through with Howard. It's the beginning. Some people become friends, really good friends, great friends, less of a friend, and then they're out. But Ralph has stuck around. He's got a little apartment in Brooklyn.
Jersey.
Jersey, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And he really has very little in life. I don't even know if he has a car.
But Ralph was 19 when he met him, and they became I don't understand a 40-something-year-old man becoming such best friends with a 19-year-old with no discernible talent whatsoever, who didn't even go to college, becomes like his guy.
I don't know. I have never been able to figure it out. I mean, there was a time where everybody on that show wanted to get rid of Ralph.
Yeah.
And Don Buchwald, who I love, said to me once, I forget where we were at dinner, a birthday party or something.
Probably the Friars. He's always there.
No, it wasn't the Friars. It was something for Howard. I forget what it is. And he said to me,
his father's people.
Can you figure out Ralph to me? And I said, you're asking me? People always thought I was closer to Howard than I was. as far as sharing things.
We all thought you were closer to Howard than you were.
Yeah. And maybe I'm upset and playing it down a little about how close we were. We spoke, at least in the beginning, every day. And he was kind enough with me to let me grow into the relationship on the show. Because one time I called him up, I said, how could Jackie keep talking today? And Howard said, don't ever talk to me about this show again. So he hung up.
Really?
Who am I to give him advice? I'm a fucking lawyer. No, but I did. I did that.
But you know what, Dom? The thing that always, and I go back to it because when you had the wealth, you didn't mind sharing it, and you didn't mind sharing it with, with his people, with being absolutely as benevolent as a human being could possibly be, and
if you would go and speak to my employees, I was the highest paying lawyer on Long Island to other lawyers. Highest paying to secretaries. I had lawyers making $1 million a year. That's ridiculous.
In Long Island, especially back then.
Excuse me?
I said, especially in Long Island, and especially back then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ridiculous. I had a formula that made me go broke. I gave you a salary. I gave you 10% of whatever the retainer was that I got. And then 50% or 20% if you got more money, and then if you brought a client, and this is wild, 50%. So if you brought me a $25,000 divorce, you got $12,500 for doing nothing.
You were just originating attorney, and you got money because you brought it in. Yeah, I get it.
That's right, and you can't do that.
Yeah,
other
Dominic.
law firms give like
you have so many.
now.
You have so many legal cases that, and again, we're going to save this for another day. But just even the Buttafuoco thing and the Jessica Hahn thing, and so was it the cart before the horse? Like, were you originally with the Joey Buttafuoco thing before you brought him into Howard's world, or vice versa?
No, Howard brought Joey into me, and Howard brought me Jessica Hahn. But Howard also, you have to remember, when I got sworn in as a lawyer, I had not graduated college. Because of my honor grades, I was able to go to law school and finish law school in about 2.5 years. The day I got sworn in, I went into New York City and I tried a case. And from then on, I was building a law practice. First criminal, but then criminal and divorce. And I made a lot of money. I don't deny it. I went nuts.
Hey, you made, you lost, you made, you lost. You're quite the interesting roller coaster of life. Seriously, you just.
Well, you know what? That's why this article in the Times is so interesting. It said we all these people that are very, very wealthy, they are now 1 second away from death, as if a nuclear bomb is going to hit us. And you know what's interesting? I just want to leave this topic of Howard for a moment.
Yep.
Did you ever wonder why the United States government is having all Americans all over the world come back? They're telling them, get on planes, get back to America.
Why?
And the question is, what do they know, the people in government and all that, know that we are not being told?
What are your thoughts?
To do anything they want, they can to get these people here to quarantine them. Bizarre.
Listen, virus and something like this is the great leveler. I get that. More level for some than others because, not all of us are blessed to be able to leave our apartments in Manhattan and go to our country homes or our ski chalets or our, condos somewhere else where we can just kind of hole up and not be in a density laden place such as Manhattan. And I've said this a couple of times on the podcast, however, and you're probably one of the only people I know that like actually coronavirus over the age of 70 survived it, lives to tell about it. Thrilled that you're here to talk to us about it. But I do feel that as a general rule, yes, there is something to be said for it hitting people that have underlying conditions older than, like let's say 60 or whatever. And I think that at some point, before we're going to absolute and utter depression, and 6.6 million people filed for unemployment thus far, that we are going to have to, certainly within the next 2 months, somehow manage to get back to business.
Well, first of all, I saw on a car just yesterday, because I go out 5 minutes every day to pick up something to eat.
Yeah.
And I'm never hungry, so maybe it'd be 2 slices of pizza. I never knew Wendy's could be so good. But I never did. They have a cheeseburger. Lettuce, tomato. But I saw this on a car, and it said, coronavirus, and then a line, makes us all equal.
Wow.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yep. And then we're going to have to figure out what's going to get this country going.
I don't know. I would love to segregate, all adult care facilities, hospitals, just really do like a very, very strict quarantine. Hopefully once they come out with the test that shows whether or not, I had a fever for 2 days and a cough, maybe I had it in a much lesser version of what's affecting these people that have to be on respirators. And I'm clear. I'm clear to go back to work. I'm clear to go back into society. Something has to give, not today, not tomorrow, probably not until May, but something has to give. And, I hear from tons of my friends in New York, and it really just shines the light on how many people don't have 3 months worth of savings to actually get themselves by. But there's no rent abatements. There's nothing going on to help people that are renters. Not yet.
No, the rent abatement will come just as the mortgage payments have now. If you can't pay your mortgage, you can miss 3 months, and they're going to tack it on to the end of your mortgage.
Right.
But that's going to bankrupt the bank.
Absolutely. But you know what? The banks get a little bit of an FU from me right now because, they have profited tremendously after the last bailout, and same with insurance companies. So I don't mind if they get a little comeuppance, which can definitely lead us into another conversation, which I love talking to you about the other day. And Johnny just mentioned it to me as well. I had no idea that Michael Cohen actually worked for you.
Yes.
So
Michael Cohen worked in my office, and Michael Cohen is
a good lawyer?
A sad boy.
Eugene.
He's particularly not intelligent, and the reason he went with Donald, who he met through me, was because Donald could yell at him and Donald would take it. You stupid this, stupid that. Michael, the reason Michael pled guilty, by the way, was they were going to indict his parents. See, with
the whole cab, with the whole taxi thing.
Yeah.
Sure, they have tons of medallions. That was like that was actually an ongoing issue, the taxi medallion thing that he was involved with his. Well,
the $900,000 medallion.
Yeah.
All of a sudden became worth $200,000. And when it became worth $200,000, you could have $700,000 in debt on it.
Sure.
So that's why the cab companies and all these companies like that are going bankrupt. And the ones that really got hurt, and that's business. But you find a guy who came to America, he bought a cab, and he paid for the cab, maybe $250 for the medallion, and then he then worked 40, 50 hours a week for 30 years he gets the value up to $700,000, $800,000 of the medallion, and he's going to sell it and buy a little place in Florida and retire. And now he's got nothing.
Well, that's Uber. That's Uber. That was Uber coming into the world, and but all of those things, liquor licenses, licenses to be able to inspect cars, taxi medallions, all that shit is at a premium, always has been. And then when some upstart comes in and says, don't need a medallion and we're just going to be a private care company, it all turns to shit. And I get it. And Michael Cohen's wife, actually, wasn't her family the ones that were heavily involved in the taxi medallion thing? It was actually the in-laws, other than him. And then I love the story about the fact that you grew up like 3 blocks away from Donald Trump. You knew him since you were like 6 years old. I love that.
Yep. And I could at another time, because I am getting a little tired. I think we have an hour, don't we?
Hour 5, yeah.
We're on the clock, Counselor?
Well, if you're on the clock, I just billed you 3 hours.
I'll be in Garden City. Fill me there. I'll be at your Shelter Island place, Dominic. Fill me there.
I missed that house.
I do want to talk about the Trump thing on some other occasion, because I love the story that you told me. I thought it was fascinating, and I thought that was lots of fun.
We can do another hour, maybe in a few days.
Oh my God, we could do 17 hours in a few days. All right, so I wanted to.
I just want to tell you one quick story. On an airplane is 4 people: the Pope, President Trump, the Prime Minister of England, and a 10-year-old boy. And as the plane is flying, the pilot gets on and says, "We have to have you all get off the plane with a parachute. We're having real serious engine problems. But we only have 3 parachutes. So you'll have to decide among yourselves who gets the parachutes." Immediately Trump says, "I'm the greatest person in the world. I have to live. I'm president of the United States." Takes the parachute, jumps. Second person is the Prime Minister. Prime Minister says, "Listen, I'm in charge of England. I have to run this country." He takes a parachute and jumps. And now the Pope says to this 10-year-old boy, "Listen, there's 1 parachute left, and I want you to have it. I've lived a life. You're a 10-year-old boy." And the little kid starts laughing. And the Pope says, "What's so funny? The president, when he jumped out, he grabbed my school bag. He didn't get a parachute."
Classic lawyer telling the shittiest jokes known to mankind.
Dominic, Jackie just stole that for Zach.
What?
He said Jackie just stole it for Zach.
Did he?
No, he's kidding, silly. All right. Listen, go ahead.
We'll speak in a few days.
Okay, so it was great talking to you. We will definitely do like a part 2 of this. There's so many other things that we want to get to, but I love you for doing this.
A lot of cases.
Yes. Well,
Dominic, one last one.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Dominic, one last one. So we get this a lot on our site and our board, and sort of when Howard's getting divorced, how come he doesn't use you to represent him? How come in all that time you never actually represented Howard, and what does he use legalese-wise?
You mean why I didn't represent him in the divorce case?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one way, or in general, both.
Well, we did some things which were minor, but the divorce was very simple. I was close with Allison, and I was close with Howard. Now, who am I going to help? And I said to Howard, "I'll get you a lawyer, and I'll get Allison a lawyer, and we'll work out a formula." And I got Howard a lawyer, and I got Allison a lawyer. But what was so interesting was the day they were finishing negotiating, and this is an interesting moment. They're about to sign the papers, but Allison says Howard to a phone call to me at that moment. I'm not signing. I said, why are you not signing? What, are you crazy? She wants, I think it was alimony for 10 years or 5 years. And I think it was $75,000. So I said, Howard, what does she want instead of? What do you want to give her? I'll give her 10% of what I earn.
Oh,
wow.
Forever.
In New York.
Dummy.
Forever.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
So I said to him, are you fucking crazy? Go in there, write a check, prepay it, tax deductible to you.
Exactly. Say thank you very much. Have a nice day. If you could get away with $75,000 a year plus whatever you have to pay for the children, you fucking take it.
In the negotiations for the divorce, Howard was more than fair. More than fair.
Oh, I'm sure. But the funny thing is, he got married. She got married like the 2 months after the divorce came through.
Oh,
Allison.
About a year.
No.
Yeah, about a year.
No, it wasn't
What's
a
the
year.
timeline? What's the timeline, Dominic? Tell us what the timeline is.
No.
well, first of all, you have to remember that there are a couple of years they're apart, and there's no divorce discussions yet. A couple of years. In addition to that, she was not in love with. I'm not going to say that. When they got split, she wasn't in love with anyone else. So I'm sure of that. And she married a very nice man.
Very nice.
I met him down here with Allison.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
So were they actually separated for a lot longer than we were given the impression of?
Yes. Yes, because Howard, they were basically separated when Howard got the apartment in the city.
Yep.
And that he would stay there and come home on weekends or sometimes not. Howard was very sensitive to his children's needs as he got older.
Right.
You know,
Dominic, what did the later, let's say, like, I want to say the early 2000s to Sirius, did Allison eventually institute a gag order that he couldn't talk about her and the kids?
I can't discuss that one.
Oh, what? Okay.
Okay.
We got the open book.
Everything I discussed today was nothing that all the public doesn't know or that I got in secret litigation. You know, I was able to, I mean, don't forget, I went to Bar Mitzvah, which kid I don't remember, and I watched them, and I knew when it was over.
Are you in contact with Allison now?
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
Good. She's in Florida.
I mean, when you say contact, I spoke to her a few times, and I saw her.
She's in Florida now.
And by the way, she has a winter home there. And by the way, she looked great.
She does look
Absolutely
great. And she looks happy.
And if you look at Howard's, I forget which website, if you go there and you see pictures in his life, they have a picture of Allison that looks so terrible.
Yeah.
And I never understood what. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I know. I have. Yep. That's the goal of mine, is to make it look shitty in pictures. You post shitty.
But she only got heavy for about a year.
Yeah, but either way, listen, we all agree that Allison was like a sweet, wonderful human being, and Howard probably after a while didn't deserve her anymore. He's spending all his time in the basement. He's admitted it on air. He'd be down there chatting with Ralph all night, and then they would go on. They would go on.
I've been down there.
Yeah, they go on gay websites and make believe, and make false names, fake names, and go into these chat rooms, these gay chat rooms, which I find bizarre behavior. It's bizarre.
Well, Dominic, what's weird? Before I got with Monique, I was looking at you and I was doing a bit of a Dom deep dive, and Howard used your place. So I want to say Memorial Day of 2000. So how long he'd be seeing Beth since that date? And then the Robin Givens stuff. And by the way, Robin Givens and Angie Everett are both Buckwall clients. So the Robin Givens stuff comes out the same day he used right. So is he seeing Robin Givens and Beth simultaneously?
He never saw Robin Givens.
No, he never. He told us that. He never.
It was just a bearded. So did Buchwald set that up, Dominic, to plant that story, give him some kind of?
I know that Buchwald sent me Robin, and I knew that was his client, and I would recommend it. That's the reason my book. Some of the things she told me, which were not privileged because there was somebody else.
you can wait up. Yeah, that's insane.
She went through some pretty serious things.
Yeah, we never hear from her anymore. It's kind of bizarre as well. She's kind of faded into the woodwork a little bit. All right, Dominic.
Monique, they just planted a story. Robin Givens did an interview with. This is all just cronyism. Did an interview with Andy Cohen. And said Howard's a fantastic lover, and it sounded so fake and so scripted. And Dominic tells us, he was jerking off Tyson instead.
All right, we're gonna. Go ahead, Dom.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
because we all thought Andy Cohen was a great heterosexual lover, and people who knew, and I really liked him.
Dominic, I gotta tell you, I hope if this is the last thing I say to you, and definitely gonna do a part 2, but I gotta tell you, on my YouTube channel, I post clips of you, and I cannot tell you how I would have thought like you're kind of like polarizing. You are crossing over to beloved now. People love you. I don't think you realize this because Howard controlled the narrative and he had to fat shame you and do all. You are beloved. On if I could read the comments to you, I would. But on our site, Monique, what would you say most requested guests we get? Where does Dominic rank? 2, 3? 2,
3, definitely up there.
And the thrill after Chauncey Hayden, Dominic, you're number 2.
Robin and I playing basketball. It's all
I got it on 4K.
And it's a whole hour. And by the way, do you know that some people work to get that off the YouTube?
Why?
And other people said, "What is it?" Yeah.
I called. I have it, Dom. You want to give it to you? I have it.
I can send it to you if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
I absolutely have it.
All right. So I'm going to wrap this up. But that goes into a whole nother conversation about how you got addicted to Vicodin and all the other shit that happened after that. After that fateful basketball game. All right, Dominic, thank you so much. What, babe?
In an apartment, not able to leave, talking to 2 very lovely people. Goodbye.
I love it.
All right, that was an interesting first foray into Dominic. What do you think?
I'm on fire. I shut it down. That's all anybody cares about. Was that we didn't even bring it, and that's I'm sure he's just tired of it.
Well, that's why we didn't bring it up because one thing we did want to play for you guys before we wrap this up was 2 things that Johnny found. One was basically Howard ripping Dom a new asshole, being a bit of a dick, right? I mean, what would you call this? How would you set this up?
This is a moment where Dominic's clearly like on the outs not on the outs, but you could tell Howard's got one foot out the door with him. He's looking for any excuse to dump him. And Dominic calls in to riff with him, and Howard goes completely into fat shaming mode. And then Dominic had come back from surgery, and I guess he's walking around. He had a walking stick. And even at that point, Dominic's got to be in his mid-60s, and we see how Howard skulks around. Howard has a walking stick now, and he couldn't be less mobile or lucid in any way.
That karma is a bitch, isn't it? So what year would you say this was?
This is 2008. This is Howard, his complete asshole, no friend of mine. He says to him, we were never friends.
Oh, let's hear it.
This is just Howard at his absolute
dickish.
I hope you're having fun making fun of me.
You still got that cane?
I'm going to bring out 2 points. What about in the Army? Does that count?
Yeah, you were in the Army?
I was in Vietnam.
Yeah,
oh my God.
We know that.
Who was it in any army?
How many dead gooks did you bang?
You know I was in Vietnam. Everyone does that.
Do you count the 20 dead gooks for the schoolhouse at Bob? How fat are you now? How much do you weigh?
Takes a village to lift
I
me.
weigh about 260.
360.
Listen,
360. Not 360.
He said 260.
260.
He said 360.
I believe 360.
And
you have a walking stick now?
No, I don't. Wouldn't you love to know I have a walking stick? Wouldn't that make you happy? Someone who used to be my dearest and loving friend.
I was never. First of all, let's go on record. Just like John Hines' phony bullshit blowjob story. I was never your nearest and dearest friend. I used you.
You were near and
Wow.
dear to him.
I used you. You were a man. You were a wealthy man. You had a house that I used.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm so glad we didn't play this when he was on air with us because I almost feel like, fuck.
No, because I would push him over the edge.
Fuck. All right, let me finish it.
He
like Jessica Hahn now.
you, and he thought you were his dear friend.
You love me.
Well, Howard, I'm telling you now, I had no other friends. You're saying you weren't my friend?
I wasn't. That's the saddest thing I ever heard, that you considered me your friend. When did I ever really get together with you? You would send stuff to my house. He was like a little fat kid who used to give kids money to be their friend.
Yeah. I did.
He would send over like giant trays of food to my house.
Turkey, remember the turkey?
Turkey, salmon, all kinds of stuff. And I go, what the fuck is this guy doing?
All right. The jealousy is there. It's so obvious. I'm good looking.
No, I just don't like you going around telling people that you're my friend. It makes me look bad.
I tell nobody you're my friend.
Wow.
I tell people Robin is my friend and Artie.
And people think Dominic's strange, and if they think I'm his only friend, they go, wow, it's strange by association. All right, thank you, Dominic. Nobody cares.
Anyone who just heard Dominic speaking, he ain't kidding. That's the real guy. That's not shtick. That's not look at me shit. That's the real guy. He might be worse off the air when he can shun you more and doesn't return your calls.
That is so fucking douche chilly. Like, he was friends with Dominic.
That was my strike three. And I didn't get to say that. That was all in the context of you playing that for him that I would have said it. But when I heard that phone call, I'm like, I hate this guy. So I guess I hated him before Artie left because that was it. That's the real guy. I'd already been repulsed by him in so many little instances where it was like chipping away at. That was the height of two-faced, front-running, high school with money, sociopathic, narcissistic, all of that rolled into one. I didn't put this on there. Jessica Hahn, who Dominic we just spoke about, calls in screaming at Howard for shitting on Dominic.
Oh, really?
And she tops it off with Howard had crap. Her husband just passed away. Her husband, who created Married with Children, just passed away, and Howard shit on her husband on the air. It was completely disrespectful. And Jessica told him to kiss her cunt and hung up. And that's the last she's ever been on the show. That was whatever 08. I think May of 2000. That's the last time Jessica has ever graced the airwaves on the show. Dominic came back. The call you have is Dominic's. The MP4 is Dominic's last call to the show. It's December 12th, 2012.
I see on the phone, I don't know if it's really him, he's in the news.
Who?
Dominic Barbera.
No. What?
Hello, everybody.
Dominic, are you losing your mind?
Absolutely not. Let me tell you this. Number one...
May I inform my audience why you're in the paper first, before you go into it?
Yes, sir.
From what I'm reading, again, you're involved with your ex-wife.
Right.
You're being accused of trying to shake her down for money. You could go to jail for a year. I don't know what's happening to you, but you've got to get a grip.
All right, let me explain one thing.
And this is very important. Please don't say that Dominic's my lawyer. He's a guy who calls into the show. No, the news.
Please don't say that.
I never said anything about that. Here's what I said.
Makes me look silly.
Her and I said this. Here's what I said in court. I said to the judge, listen, Judge, we are the biggest embarrassment that ever's been to two people. I've had her arrested 3 times. She's had me arrested twice. And you know what? I said, Judge, all this has to end. And I said to the press, look, I forgive her. I'm with Christ. I know you think that's a joke, but I really am with God. And I said, let's end all this. You know what? I gave her $3.5 million almost. She didn't want to give me back $300,000 of my money. Forget it all. I want to end every problem. I want to go on with life and just...
All right, so let me guess what happened here. I'm going to guess what happened here. Maybe you'll deny it, but I have a feeling, because of what happened to you, losing your law license temporarily, that money is tight, and that you said to yourself, hey, I gave her all this money in the divorce.
No.
I'll tell her I want some of my money back.
No.
And then you said, give me $10,000, but then you started saying that she had sex with her boss and making all these claims.
So this is basically about the newspaper incident and not so much about Dominic, right?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a body of work he'd accumulated up until that point. It was crazy, and we didn't even really get into it all there with him because it makes you almost look Artie's stuff is organized compared to what Dominic had gone through from the years of like 2008 to like 2013. It was just one thing. I mean, he and Winona Ryder shoplifted at like, Walgreens in Garden City. He had a stalking thing with Leslie Monique. I can't even chronicle it. That's like you said, when we were proposed with talking to him, I just froze. And where do we start?
Yeah.
Kind of mode.
I mean, the epic fall from grace and the, hopefully redemption of Dominic is hopefully what people will wind up getting out of it.
It sounds cliche, and you say this about everybody, and it takes a lot for me because we've both met some pretty interesting people. To say this guy has a movie in him is an insult to almost.
Oh my God! Absolutely,
miniseries in him. He's got. How about a movie called Dominic?
Absolutely. It's funny when you and I were first talking before he came on and before we started recording, and you wanted to talk about the Scott Salem thing, and I'm like, we're not going to have time to get into that, and he wound up bringing it up, which I thought was kind of.
I knew it would.
Phenomenal. Well, who knew Scott went down to Florida and that he talked to him, and it just shows everybody the pattern of Howard and how he isn't a benevolent man, and he isn't a giver, and he isn't somebody who anybody can count on when they're down and out, other than probably Robin. Let's be honest.
That's anytime Howard was strapped for an idea, Dominic would bail him out, offering money to facilitate the contest, or when Howard was culpable for somebody come to him for help. And he would never help any of his staff out. No. Dominic would be the one calling in to, whether it was money or legal advice or representing the person or introducing them to someone. He would constantly bail Howard out of having to help out his own staff, whether it was Casey or whoever, Grillo, Ganji, Artie, Stuttering John. I think used Dominic a million times. I'm sure he brought it up to you off air or whatever, but John used Dominic constantly in those years. Financial advice, who to deal with, that whole shit. So for that show, who remains there that were friends with Dominic to not talk to him now because that's convenient for Howard for you to shut out the same people he does, you're going to hell. Shame on you.
Shame on you.
For you could not be more justified.
Shame on you. You're exactly right.
Make things better for yourself.
All right. Tell Gary I'll be coming in soon, please.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Dominic.
I just want to go on.
All right. So Dominic is making a statement, Robin, that he wants to go on.
And yes. And I do. And Robin, I want to speak to you up the ass about something about your health. Nothing.
Okay.
I just read some.
I bet you can't wait for that, Robin.
Yeah, I'll be calling you. Sit by the phone.
Do you have pictures? Dominic? Do you have pictures of Robin having sex with anyone? And perhaps you could.
Well, listen. I had a tummy tuck done by Dr. Acker, and I will tell you this: I can see something now that I haven't seen in 30 years. That's all.
I hope it's the truth.
I'll tell you this, finally, I'm not smaller than you anymore.
All right,
I love you all.
Did they put you in jail for?
No.
You did not go to jail. All right.
I got in, got out.
Try to get out of this mess you're in.
I will.
All right, then go on and make things better for yourself.
All right, tell Gary I'll be coming in soon, please.
All right, very good. Thank you, Dominic.
He was saying in one of the clips that Dominic goes out to the Hamptons to celebrate Beth on the cover of Hamptons magazine with that Jason Bin gaywad, and he gets shit on for it by Howard. He's going to become a Hamptons party boy now because this monologue epitomizes all his friends. It was like, Zoss Rapin and Richie Notar and Dominic's out there, and there's 4 guys, and they have unlimited time off and time to hang out in the Hamptons. And Howard came back in the most jealous, bitter mode of the free time these guys had. So I knew listening to this, his aspirations to get this series is going to be as much time off as I possibly can be to match Ross Zapin's schedule.
Lucky bastards. Well, Richie stays out there like all week. I don't know how any of these guys do it.
I think he can do a lot of his business by phone.
I
He doesn't
guess.
actually have to show up.
Yes. And Ross, he's out there. He's man of leisure now.
We know Ross doesn't have a job.
But I would be out looking for one, no?
He seems pretty calm for a guy who's not working.
Yeah.
He's got a summer home.
Makes me crazy.
He's networking.
I'm running around like a loon. Everybody else is relaxed. I tell you, I got to get some friends who have real jobs.
Yeah, people who have to show up.
Yeah.
No, you went the opposite way. You stayed friends with people who have no jobs, and then you basically have very, very, very little job now. Very little job.
Can't you hear the Hamptons wheels spinning there?
Oh, 1,000%.
He's about to sign with Sirius a few months after this.
Yeah, and then...
It's almost like he knows it's going to happen.
Was he already renting? No, he was staying with Richie Notar, he said, right? Like he stayed at his house.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why he had Dominic sleeping around.
Easy.
They irritate you. See, at least I don't see it. If you got friends like that, it just irritates.
Oh, it's so irritating. And Saturday night, went to dinner with Dominic Barbera and his wife, Leslie.
I thought you had given up on Dominic.
Well, I have. But Beth had Jason Bin, the guy from Hamptons Magazine. Beth is on the cover of Hamptons Magazine.
Yeah.
Very beautiful cover. So he threw a dinner for Beth. And Beth invited Leslie, Barbara, and Dominic. But Beth says I embarrassed Dominic at the dinner.
Well, how did you do that?
Yeah, all right, I'll tell you what.
Dominic's embarrassing himself, but how did you?
I embarrassed him by Richie Notar and Jane were there, his wife Jane, Ross Zapin, my friend, and his fiancée Melissa were there.
Yeah.
So I said, Dominic, let's play a game. What? I go, you've gone away with Ross. I said, you've gone away with the 4 people sitting here at this table. I said, what are their names?
Oh, you're kidding.
So he goes, so Melissa's name, now mind you, Dominic's been away for 2 weeks.
Yeah, but he's also been socializing with these people for years now.
So Dominic,
So he's socializing with these people, so they're friends with Dominic, basically. So it's not like it's Howard's friends that Dominic's socializing with.
If you know anybody through association of Howard, he thinks he has dominion over those people to you. You're not allowed to hang out unless he says you're allowed. You're pre-approved. Unless I say you can hang out with these guys, you can't. So if he tells Ross and Notar to cut off Dominic, they have to listen to him. Howard's the end-all conduit to everything that exists in that world. You wouldn't know anybody if it wasn't for him. They'd never hook up. No friends. There'd be no friends. There'd be no existence in these people's lives.
Yeah.
And he takes credit for everything good in their life.
Yeah, you're right. I'm actually shocked that, he didn't say to Dominic at some point, I should earn like a percentage of your earnings, because if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be as successful as you are.
Speaking of numbers, when you told me he was giving us an hour, I didn't quite buy it. I'm like, oh God, we'll get lost in the, this time. The lawyer in him came out. He was staring at that clock. He knew exactly the time.
But I knew it was because he hasn't been feeling well, and it takes him a lot to actually talk that much.
Totally understood, but I didn't. I just didn't think he would.
Yeah, he's gonna bill us. He's gonna bill us $1,000 for this fucking interview.
Point to Melissa, and I made Leslie Barbara shut up because she was trying to whisper, like, Dominic. Shh.
She doesn't talk like that at all.
So he didn't know Melissa's name at all.
Okay.
Gifted mimic.
Ross, he knew. Not the last. He knew his name Ross, but he didn't know his last name.
Okay.
And then he just stared at Richie Notar.
You're kidding.
Which shocked me. He knew Jane's first name. He didn't know her last name. But he stared at Richie for the longest time. Must have been 5 minutes. Finally came up with Richie Natar.
Natar.
Yeah.
He knew Jane.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he knew Jane.
Right.
He knew her name. So he got 50% of the names right. I said, how is it you go away with these people and hang out with them? You haven't bothered to learn their names, Because
I feel like he's always treated Dominic a little bit like he's foolish, even though Dominic's a pretty smart fucking guy.
I dare you to find a phone call and there's a million of them, where he's not completely reductive and condescending and fat shaming to him. I dare you to find one. He won't. It's a constant that to embarrass your friend all the time whenever you get the chance.
Well,
it's truly high school lunch table in his world, right? Billionaire high school lunch table.
that first clip you made me play, it was really just, it just epitomizes the entirety of what, what happens here. You were never my friend. You had lots of money. I used you.
It would appear Dominic's big function for him was to be the haven for him to hide out with Beth when he was sneaking Beth around. He didn't want to know that relationship had not been outed yet. So like I said, in that Memorial Day of 2000, Howard started his show off saying he went to Shelter Island, did not mention Beth's name, didn't even mention Dominic. So Dominic's Shelter Island, you couldn't hide out more. That is so difficult to get to. Anyone who knows Long Island, you got to go to Sag Harbor, take a ferry. God knows any other way you'd go there from a boat from the other side of Connecticut.
Right.
If you want to hide out and not have any paparazzi look at you or family, that's the place to go. Shelter Island's better than the Hamptons.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of high, it's not even close.
Well, for the first year I was on this show, whenever he'd call in, he'd call me Arnie.
Yeah, Arnie.
I mean, for a full year.
That was that. And I said, what's Beth's last name? He knew, he managed to utter Otrosky, which is fine. I mean, like I said, hey, at least it was close.
That's a good guess.
Yeah.
I love
Otrosky.
Yeah.
No, he's an Otrosky.
I mean, he's hung out with her maybe 50,000 times. But it was called, at least he kind of knew.
Well, he does know her first name.
I only have eyes for Howard Allen Stern.
I was going to say, he knows all your names.
All of them.
He knows your birth date, everything. Your driver's license number.
And then, like, the table was big because we had the Ericas there, Danny and Vera. We had other people there, so he couldn't get near me. So he went and sat at another table with some people he knew.
Oh, you laughed.
For about 50% of the dinner. And then
he didn't have you all to himself.
So who shows up for dessert?
Was Dominic at John's wedding when you watched the video?
I don't recall that.
I didn't see him either.
I don't recall that, no.
Yeah, I didn't see him either.
Would he have been?
He didn't go because Howard didn't go.
Would he have been invited? I should ask John that next time I talk to John. I'll ask him.
He definitely would have been invited.
Okay.
What did you think about that story he told about seeing Howard and Kimmel out, and Kimmel's the one who comes over and says hi to him?
I'm absolutely amazed by that. I love that story. I love the fact that Robin Givens was never his lover. I love the fact that neither was Angie Everhart. I love like all that kind of stuff. I do. I want to get into
like there's no Monique with the paparazzi as tenacious as they are in New York. And, especially at that time, Howard it was a story for them. And they were all, whether it was Richard Johnson or Malloy and Rush, they wanted shit on Howard, and they reported on him constantly. You mean to tell me we don't have any pictures of them out together?
Guess not.
Nothing?
I guess not, because they didn't date. That's right, because they didn't date. Right. So there you go. There is nothing to see. Nothing to see here is basically the story. Yep. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And come join us at radiogunk.com at the forums if you want to participate in a conversation about Dominic or anything that we're talking about on the podcast. And we thank you for being here with us. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye, Johnny.